And joining us is a man again who is no stranger to the Observer, political analyst, Dr. Bishnu Ragoonath. A pleasant good evening, sir.
Good evening. Pleasure to be on your program once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out to being here with us. Today there was a press conference, the Prime Minister making it quite clear that he is maintaining that government will support the Commissioner of Police. He says that he had no intention to use today's press conference to dismiss the National Security Minister or Top Cop in light of concerns over murders and gun violence. And I mean, based on the fact that we've had such a bad start of the year already, with so many murders and so much that is taking place as far as senior citizens again who are considered soft targets, people going about their business, home invasions. What say you, hearing that he's not going to hold the Minister of National Security or the Top Cop in any bad light?
Well, as I've said on several other media, I did not expect that the Prime Minister would have attempted to interfere with the Minister of National Security or with the Police Commissioner. I think I have grown to very well not necessarily predict what he's going to say, but at least predict what he's going to do as it relates to appointments that he would have made or had a great hand in making. And he doesn't like people challenging his decision. So from that perspective, I did not think that the Minister of National Security had anything to fear, because the Prime Minister would have kept him not there. With regard to the Police Commissioner, there's a concern that I have, and in fact, some of the people in the press conference today apparently attempted to raise it, but I think we went around in circles in trying to get an answer. And I will say that immediately. My question to the Prime Minister would have been, okay, I accept the fact that you have to have some degree of, and ensure that you have continuity with regard to how you treat with your Commissioner of Police. But your Commissioner of Police term expires in May of this year. Have the Police Service Commission initiated the process by which they could go and select or find a replacement? And as far as I'm aware, and I'm open to correction, as far as I'm aware, that process has not been initiated. And my question is, who is supposed to initiate that? Because clearly, from the response that I heard from the Prime Minister, somebody sent me bits and pieces of the recording. Clearly, what it means is simply that the Prime Minister is probably suggesting that they will only go look for a new police commissioner when there's a vacancy. If we're doing good succession planning and good management planning, we know that somebody is going off the job in May of this year. Then we start the process long before to identify a possible replacement. But I am not sure that we're going that way. So my question remains, one, yes, the Prime Minister has expressed some sort of confidence in the police commissioner for fear that by not expressing that confidence, he's going to undermine her while she's in office. At least that's the interpretation.
But let me ask you, do you also believe that the perception could be that we are in an election season and he simply doesn't want to look as though he has lost control over the matter, the issue of crime?
Well, he doesn't have to think that he has lost control. Everybody else thinks that he does, that he has. And we have lost control over crime. So that's an issue, but I don't think elections has anything to do with it, because clearly, if we had to look at the normal election timetable, the normal election timetable goes until September of next year. Okay, that's when the 5 year term will expire. So herein comes the question: is this not the best time to deal with this challenge? Because if you deal with it and you replace your commissioner of police now, then you have a year with which to work with your replacement, a year and more. If, however, we continue the way we're going, What this would mean is simply that come May, we may very well hear the Prime Minister say, well, the Cabinet has decided to extend her term for another one-year period. And if things go from bad to worse, I mean, I don't know if it could get any more worse, but if things go from bad to worse, is he going to deal with that 4 months before an election next year? And that's the challenge. And you see, you have to measure when it's going to be most, politically expedient in order that you do certain things. I would have thought that this would have been the best time for him to deal with it. But of course, he may think different.
What's your take on the opposition leader inviting him to the anti-crime talks, asking the Prime Minister to join her, the leader of the opposition, at the anti-crime town hall meetings? She said it's a non-political platform where we can present to the population the viewpoints on crime, challenge the viewpoints directly to face, hear the feedback from citizens in real time, and answer their burning questions.
And I think, I mean, regardless of what we want to say about the opposition, that is a position that I had adopted several months ago. You may recall, and I think I did say it on your show earlier, where I actually asked students in my classes whether they had suggestions and proposals as to how to deal with crime, with the crime situation. Several students in my classes at the university wrote 2 and 3 pages of how they interpret crime, and particularly so since 2 of them, I think, came from crime hotspots and what they would have suggested. Now, today I understand that the Prime Minister said he has no interest in hearing what civil society say. He has no interest in that if people want to talk, they could talk, but really and truly that doesn't make a difference there. And again, I go back to my own training, and my own training has been in local government and local governance. And my own training has told me that in the majority of instances, people, ordinary people, have and know the solutions to their problems. What they don't have is the wherewithal to make sure that they could implement those solutions. And when the Prime Minister dismisses everything that civil society would have to say, what the population would have to say, and I think this is where I recall that last year, I was very, very disappointed when the Prime Minister had decided we were going to move from a crime consultation, a national crime consultation, to make it into a CARICOM crime consultation, where again he had left out the people. Today, however, based on what he said, I now have been able to rationalize where his thinking has been, and his thinking has been simply, I really don't care what the people have to say, but for all intents and purposes, they could talk, let the jackasses bray, but from my own perspective, I only want to deal with legislation and those sorts of things. And again, ignoring the voice of the people. I mean,
yeah, but
I don't understand. The voice of the people is the voice of God.
Yeah, but Dr. Ragoonath, we have been through so many pieces of legislation. I mean, we were told by the former Attorney General, Faris Alwari, that they know who the gangsters are, they know where they sleep, they know where they reside, they know what they eat. Yet still, we didn't make a dent there. We were told that we were also working with external forces, other agencies outside of the country. We don't know what role they play. We were hearing the name FBI and CIA being bandied about. But at the end of it all, what is that doing to secure the lives of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago? And I think the Prime Minister coming today and talking about a manpower audit of 2017 does nothing for the amount of people who have died under his watch and people who are living in fear currently.
And that, I think, is where the real issue is. So by coming and bringing a 6-year-old report, that's good. The data in there is good. But how do you treat with the real issues of the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago who is living in fear? You see, I mean, I'm going to say this. We are in what not myself, but rather what an international diplomat has referred to Trinidad as, we are in a crime crisis. Unfortunately, the way the government is treating with this, as this is an everyday matter, because Trinidad is a violent society, and you have to expect that. But we are in a crime crisis, and not until you take the bull by the horns and you decide you're actually going to deal with this in a critical way, then and only then we'll deal with it. By saying you're bringing in the FBI and the CIA, and I agree that those are institutions you could ask for help. But I have to question whether the intention of bringing in the FBI and the CIA is for the masses, or really to ensure, because from what I heard of Minister Hines, is that they come in to oversee Carnival and make sure Carnival is safe. Make sure Carnival is safe for their citizens who would be visiting. But after Carnival, then what? Are they going to withdraw? And we don't know the terms of reference of what the CIA and the FBI are supposed to be doing in Trinidad, except to ensure that we have a safe Carnival.
Well, and that's it. And we hear these names, and it's supposed to give us some sense of comfort that, you know, FBI, CIA. But going back to today, of course, the press conference, Dr. Rowley made it quite clear that there were difficulties in finding leadership in the TTPS. And I guess he's talking about perhaps a culture. But this culture has existed for so many years. But how do you weigh in on this when you hear about these allegations of political interference to select the top cup? You know, yes, there may be a culture in the TTPS. There may be people who are not motivated. There are people who are there based on nepotism and friendship, whatever the case may be. But whose job is it to ensure that the rank and file is there, well-trained, and ready to execute their jobs to secure and protect the lives of the citizens?
And that remains a real problem for our senior management in the police service. But you see, and this is where I raise the question, my initial question. And if you recall my initial question, who is supposed to initiate the process to select a new police commissioner? Because if it is the Police Service Commission, and we have not heard the Police Service Commission invite applications, because we know that process last time around took a year and something, or more than 2 years, and we have not heard yet. So are they waiting for the system to collapse? Did the Police Service Commission get the directive or the memo, which the rest of us didn't get, that don't worry, we don't need a police commissioner this year. We're going to have a renewal of the existing one, and we're going to deal with that next year? I don't know. But you see, that in itself would tell us, or will answer that other question that you just raised, and that other issue, political interference. Because if you have a police service commission who is supposed to manage the affairs of the police service and the appointment at senior management, they should have been dealing with this all the time. And they should have to wait for the Prime Minister to tell you, all right, go look for a police commissioner now.
Yeah.
They should be doing their job.
Exactly. And I agree with you.
Have that.
Let me also ask you, as far as the whole political climate as it is now, Michaela Pandey, she is saying that she's going to contest the 2025 general elections. She says that she scolded the government and the opposition for not holding anti-crime talks. What say you?
Michaela Pandey is simply doing what one would have expected her to. And in fact, this is one of the things that people are looking now as to where's Michaela Pandey going in the politics. There was, and there would have been, a sympathy wave that went along with her with the passing of Basi Pandey, and that will continue for some time. However, here comes a challenge for Michaela Pandey. That sympathy wave cannot continue for a year and a half, which is when we are proposing the next general election to be. or at least a year and a half away. So now is the time for her to make hay while the sun is shining. Now is the time to build her party if she wants to go it alone. If she wants to go it alone, because I don't know what her position would be in the context of whether she's going to go it alone or whether she's going to be trying to find herself in some other party. She's spoken about the UNC.
Right.
And said that, well, she attempted to embrace them, but they have not reciprocated.
Right.
And they did not embrace her. But again, based on the fluidity of the current situation, that does not rule out that there may be some further embrace as we go closer into an election.
Yeah, but do you think that she has enough as far as her body of work? And as you said, I mean, the novelty is going to wear off at some point in time. You know, you've been there, you're grieving for your father. He meant a lot to so many people here in Trinidad and Tobago. But is that enough to thrust her into that entire arena and gain some sort of traction?
I don't think it is enough at this point in time.
Right.
And I think she will have to do a lot of groundwork. I think her best position or her best option would be for her to try to find some sort of accommodation, merger, or find herself within the bowels of a party where even if she has to be part and parcel, not necessarily at the leadership, but somewhere in the leadership, but not necessarily the leader. I think she's going to have to do that. I mean, there has been suggestions, for instance, especially after the state funeral, and especially after she came out and said that Dr. Brown was so helpful to the family and so on, and people started asking the question. So if Dr Rowley decides she's not going to go back up as leader of the PNF, and what happens if Amory Brown becomes leader? Will Amory Brown embrace Mikee K and let her bring her into the Senate, for instance, and give her a position? And again, the situation is so fluid, we don't know where she would want to go.
Yeah.
She said she wants to contest elections. That is a noble goal. Remember, she also said that in 2019 when she launched her party.
That's right. That's right.
And she failed to contest elections in 2020.
Final thing for me. Tell me, you just mentioned, of course, Dr. Rowley, if he decides to resign. Serious, or should we just take that with a pinch of salt?
I think we have to be serious about that. And I tell you why. Dr. Rowley, if he is not able to, how shall I put it, to manage the politics the way he would want it to be, I think he would prefer let somebody else manage it.
So you're saying, and you're putting it kindly, but you're saying if he makes the assessment and the feedback is that he's not politically attractive, do you believe that he has that political maturity to say, listen, let someone else step into the place?
And herein comes the triggers to these things, right? Two things. One, Dr. Rowley told us that he's going on vacation with his wife.
Right.
Sometime in the near future. Again, you have to look at the history, you have to look at the future. Historically, in 2020, he said his wife was very upset with him when he came home and told, because he had told the family he was not going to go back into or lead the party into the election. And his family was very upset with him when he decided, without consulting them, to contest the elections in 2020. So he's going on vacation with his wife, who is also going to exert pressure, because as far as she's concerned, as far as she's concerned, She's now retired and she would like to spend time with her husband in their golden years. So that could be one pressure point. The other pressure point is he tells us that he's also going for 2 sets of medical checkups, one in locally and one abroad. Depending on what, so those could really be easy excuses. If Dr. Rowley could come back and say, well, my family has told me they don't want me to remain in politics, one, or my doctors have told me that I should limit the political scenario. And to that extent, let the leadership of the party now find a new leader, or the membership of the party find a new leader.
All right. Stick a pin in that. I want to talk about more of that in a future interview. I really want you to expand on that. Quite interesting. I want to thank you again for taking time out to link with us right here on The Observer. It's a pleasure as always. But we are going to follow up this interview based on that. Who is going to succeed, do you think, Dr. Rowley? Thank you so much, Dr. Ragoonath, again.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.